Secrets of a Sun King, Chapter 12. Later that night we caught the boat from Dover. The sway of the train became the swell of the sea as I crawled into bed exhausted. At first light we docked in France, boarded another train that was to take us all the way to Athens. This leg of the journey lasted a whole 3 days, though unbelievably our new train was even fancier than the last. It had doorbell-type buttons in the walls you could press for tea and cake, and a 7-person orchestra that played all through dinner, though my mind often drifted back to Grandad and the jar, keeping my spirits up wasn't too hard. Very early on the second day we passed through German forests. Then the train started climbing into the mountains. The weather got much colder and ice formed on the windows, and we had to turn the heating in our cabin to high. We went through tunnels cut into the mountainside and passed what to me looked like a frozen river, but Oz insisted was a glacier. By the end of the second day, we'd come through the mountains. The snow turned to rain and we dropped down into a dizzying fashion to the valley below. The fields and forests looked less green, and we started passing crops planted in long, low rows. Vineyards, Oz says, and caught Tulip's eye and smiled. She was right. Her brother really was a walking encyclopedia. In the lull between afternoon tea and dinner that day, Tulip suggested we play a game. It'll be fun, she promised. We were in Oz's compartment. He was in his bunk reading books that apparently had once been his brother's. Tulip and I were squished up on the floor, sun coming in through the window, and I could feel my eyelids getting heavier. Count me in, I said, yawning. Tulip asked Oz for his sketchbook, which he took from his bag and gave to her warily. With a sharp yank, she pulled out the middle pages, then laid them open on the floor. Pencil, please, she instructed. Oz passed her the one he often kept behind his ear. Then to me, empty that glass of water, will you? She meant the one sloshing about on the night table. The only place to pour it was out of the window, which I did. Oz and I then watched over Tulip's shoulder as she wrote the letters of the alphabet in a circle on the paper. Oz guessed what I did, before I did what she was up to, and made me wonder if they'd played the game before. Ouija, he muttered. I knew the name. You pronounced it Ouija. Grandad said it was what the Victorians did in the days before radio sets, but Mum claimed it was just another way to tune into different voices, and it depended on what you believed. A chill lifted the hairs on my arms. It was probably too late to suggest a game of cards instead. I didn't want to seem the scaredy cat. If Oz was happy to play, I told myself so was I. Close the blinds, please, Tulip ordered, and the lamps, switch them off. She was bossy. I had to give her that. The dark we'd created wasn't proper nighttime black, but it was enough to change the mood. Tulip's next instruction was to lock the compartment door and pull the bolt at the top. We don't want any adults coming in and ruining it, she explained. Then there was just enough space for all of us to sit on the floor in a circle, though we had to draw our knees up under our chins and watch what we did with our elbows. Oz, I could tell, didn't like being so jammed in. Now join hands, everyone, and shut your eyes, Tulip said. Though I did as she asked, I had a bad feeling this game wasn't going to be fun. Spirits, we're here today to ask if there are any messages for us from the other side. Please make yourselves known in a manner of your choosing. Tulip's voice, heavy and slow, reminded me of school assemblies where the vicar read for hours. Then my stomach made a slurping noise. Shh, Lil, Tulip tutted. Sorry, I squirmed, half laughing, half horrified. I can't help it. Oz dropped my hand. Don't want to play, he said. It's too much hand-touching and being close. He climbed back onto his bunk and promptly picked up his book. We'll do it with just the two of us, shall we? I suggested. Tulip shook her head. It won't work. But she let me take her hands, and when I shut my eyes again, she must have done the same, because moments later she was speaking in that same sermon voice. I sat very still, without Oz breathing next to me. It was easier to concentrate. Is anyone there? Tulip asked. Give us a sign, spirits, if you can hear us. Nothing happened. Is there anyone there? She asked again. Behind me, the bunk creaked. It was Oz. You can't just call up any old ghost, he pointed out. You need to have someone specific in mind. I opened one eye. Tulip didn't. Sitting ramrod straight, she told Oz calmly and coldly to shut up. So, spirit world, she resumed. Do you have a male visitor for us? Or is it female? Tulip dropped my hand suddenly. I opened my eyes to see her finger now on the bottom of the upturned glass. It began to move across the paper. It was obviously Tulip doing, though that didn't stop it seeming eerie. The glass came to a halt next to the letter A. What's it saying? Oz said. A was for Alex, of that I was pretty certain. When Oz saw which letter it was, he sank back onto the bed. I thought you said this would be fun, Tulip, he said miserably. It's not real, you're making the glass move. Should we play something else? I suggested, thinking this wasn't fair on Oz, who was clearly spooked. But Tulip grabbed my hands. You try. I put my fingers on the glass like she'd done. Didn't feel any different. Tulip, I think... I stopped. Something was happening. The room grew warmer. Suddenly, I could smell dust. What's going on? Tulip sounded nervous now. The lamps, already switched off, flickered to life, then died again. I don't know, I admitted. Before our very eyes, then, the glass moved. My finger was on it, but certainly not guiding it. It inched across the paper by itself. Tulip got to her knees. Are you pushing it, Lil? You better not be. No, I took my hand away to prove it. The glass kept moving in its funny, jerky way. It wasn't right seeing a glass move like that. The air around us seemed to fizz and prickle. I felt cold and very afraid. You must have done something, Tulip cried. She glared at me, at the glass, the paper, as if expecting to find a trick there. I haven't, I promise. Oz crouched next to me on the floor. That, he gasped, staring at the glass, is incredible. I didn't think so. It felt wrong and creepy, though I couldn't look away as the glass moved clumsily towards the first letter. Tulip whirled the glass on in an almost frenzy. Choose A for Alex. It looked as though it might, then at the last it veered right and stopped at N. Write it down, somebody, insisted Tulip. Oz grabbed his sketchbook and pencil. The next letter came fast, O, then a T and a pause, followed by an H, an E, an R and another E. I read the words out loud. Not here. What sort of message is that? Tulip asked, and who is it for? I didn't know, but my heart was knocking so hard against my ribs I wanted this stupid game to stop. The glass hadn't finished, though. The next word was in. We looked at each other, still baffled. A person, maybe, or a place? I caught myself thinking of the jar and all the strangeness that came with it. Could the glass be trying to tell me something? Hardly daring to breathe, I waited. The glass didn't move. After a while, Tulip shifted to a more comfortable sitting position. Oz started twiddling his pencil. My mind, ever so slightly, began to drift. You could almost feel the mood in the room relax. All the signs where the message had ended. Then, just as Tulip was about to speak, the glass shot across the paper. I jumped a mile. The glass spelled out the next word and then rolled onto the carpet, stopping against the sole of Tulip's shoe. Not here, in afterlife, Oz read from the note. That's what the message says. Tulip frowned. What does that mean? Could be about Kai, I suggested. Wasn't it why we were trying to return the jar, so the curse could stop and Kai could finally complete his journey to the afterlife? Or it could be about Alex. It's only a silly game, Tulip reminded us, getting stiffly to her feet. Come on, we've been cooped up in here for too long. All that evening, Tulip kept gazing into the middle distance, or drifting off halfway through conversations. Oz, meanwhile, was tired and irritable. Whatever's the matter with you both? Mrs. Mendoza asked more than once. In the end, we went to bed early. The Ouija message bothered you, didn't it? I asked Tulip when we were alone in our cabin. She flopped down on her pillow with a sigh. The way I see it is this. Either I get my hopes up that Alex is still alive, or I ignore the message completely. Both things are heartbreaking. She had a point. But thinking about my brother, how odd to say that. Life had a way of springing things on you that you least expected. Never say never, I told her. To my mind, not here in afterlife had two meanings. A dead person stuck in limbo, or someone who wasn't dead at all.